I'm Oliver Fuselier, the managing director of Great Guns USA. This is Addison Capper, who's the North American editor at LBB. So we want to welcome you.
Welcome. I thought I would just jump in quickly. You know, I'm sat here in Germany and some things are kind of opening up and life is getting back to some kind of normality. But literally yesterday I saw that New York, for example, has just ended every restriction, right? Is that true, Bianca?
That is true. That's pretty scary. I went to the supermarket and people weren't wearing a mask and I was like, what's wrong with you people? Like, I felt so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Is there because I think it's fairly similar in LA and Miami, right? Is that fair to say?
I mean, Florida never closed.
Yeah, Florida never closed.
On Twitter, Florida possibly.
Yeah, so it was scary.
Was there I guess, aimed at the New Yorkers and people in LA, was there, because I'm kind of waiting for that day when things are normal, but obviously it was kind of scary, but was there one thing that you kind of went and did that you couldn't do before, that you were excited to do, or something that you may not have done yet but are planning to do?
The boring things, it was just kind of having people over, but a gathering of more than the two couples that we had, merged bubbles with, and having, our kids play with each other and not be worried about, a lot of the stuff we wore before. I hadn't gone to salon or anything, and I actually went for the first time a closed space, and I was I just want to get my nails done, and I went in and it was very surreal, but it was all boring things for me. So at this point, we just kind of did the not boring, the more expected real life, normal life scenarios, versus I went and did something crazy that I hadn't done in a while.
The thing that I found over the past year is you can, if you figure things out, you can do a lot of stuff, but it's just the kind of the mind power and the actual thinking behind doing the most inane, boring things that I think is the most taxing part of the last year. Like you say, just having someone over for a coffee, there's always something in the back of your mind that maybe it's a bad idea to do that.
Yeah. For me, I think it was hugging people. To be able to see people and hug instead of waving or just elbowing, and you don't really know how to react. So I think being able to say hi and hug people, for me, I think that is one of the main things.
Hugging is true. I'm Brazilian, and we hug every time we say hi. We kiss people and we hug people. And, so not so just that is definitely a big one.
No more elbow touches.
Yeah.
No. That was not very natural for me. I just doing the clunky little dance of what are we doing? No, I'm a hugger. I think for me, just to answer it, is going back to Mexico. I hadn't been to Mexico in a long time, and I always get hardcore low grade depression if I don't go back and see my family and my people pretty regularly. And as soon as I got fully vaxxed in May, I took a little trip down there and got to reconnect with the people and the food, and it was amazing. This really, really recharged my batteries.
It's just so crazy that we have gone through a year of just sheer craziness that we've never experienced as human beings before, and that we all have done it together and are coming out in it in a more positive, I think, stronger way, really. I think what I would do right now is I'd love to introduce you guys. So our first guest today is Renata Neumann. She's the head of production at GUT, Miami in Florida. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Just a couple of things. I kind of tried to dive a little bit into your past. You have a lot of things. I mean, you speak 3 languages. Maybe been skydiving?
Twice.
You like water. I know that. Dove Beauty Sketches is a real honor to be speaking to somebody that worked on that. I represented John X. Kerry a long time ago when I ran Tool, and I just thought it was just such an amazing piece of work. But tell us something that people don't know, or tell us about any of the things that I just mentioned.
I'm from Brazil as well. I grew up in São Paulo. I went to advertising school in São Paulo. When I went to school, I actually wanted to go to film school, but my mom said no. So I ended up going to advertising. And in advertising, I wanted to be a creative. When I was interviewing for my first internship, the head of production looked at me and she was like, I think she can be a good fit at production. So that's how I landed at the production department. I mean, I think I was always lucky in my career of being in the right place at the right time, being surrounded by the right people, having the amazing mentors that helped me grow. Here I am. I think that's my background, how I landed in production and advertising.
So our next guest is Bianca Guimaraes. You're the partner and executive creative director at Mischief USA, New York. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you've done some quite amazing work, but I do know that you also wanted to be a teacher. Is that?
I think it was just like when I was younger, like I had this thing where I wanted to teach people, and like I did stuff with my parents where I give them homework or people around me, and I was like mad that they wouldn't do it, but it was really like when I was a kid, I just liked that a lot. And then I guess similarly to Renata, the sort of the way I got into advertising was like a process of elimination more. Like I just knew what I didn't want to do. And then like cinema and some like other things like that sounded cool or like shiny. It's like, oh, that sounds fun. Like advertising came up. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try this because you're young. I don't know anything. And I ended up liking and started thriving at some of like the more creative classes. And I just was lucky that I found myself in like learning and doing something that I really liked, and so it was almost like by like happy accident.
Wow, I love it. Well, I mean, you are in a leadership role, so in a sense you are kind of a teacher of sorts. Mm-hmm. I would assume. I'm sure you pull from that as well.
Yeah. Actually, I've taught a few like semesters at Miami Ed School and a couple other things, and it's good. I like it, but I don't think it's for my personality necessarily.
Well, thank you very much for that. And our last guest is Diego de la Maza. He's the EVP, head of production at Deutsch LA. Welcome.
Hi guys, welcome.
You have a lot of interest and passions. I mean, you're a film buff, I guess. You love swimming, you love board games. Tell me something that maybe that other people don't know or people don't know about you.
Oh, wow. Well, I think going back to how I started, I always thought I wanted to be an actor and that I was going to be an actor. And that was like my passion. I am a movie buff from a very early age, but I always thought I'd end up in front of the camera. And as I got into it and started, realizing the realities of filmmaking and storytelling, I was like, oh no, I am way too much of a control freak, to not be behind the camera, to not be controlling from the beginning to the end, the full project. So I very wisely made the decision to switch into production, and I've never looked back.
Well, we're glad you're in this industry. It's really great. I mean, again, welcome all three of you. Again, time is very valuable. We really appreciate it. So let's just get started with the first question. The power of words are more important than ever. What is the most inspiring and what is the most annoying word or words that have stood out to you in the past year? And I think we're going to start with Renata first.
I think the word that most stood out and that I want to take with me, I think is empathy. I do think it's a word that's lacking a lot in our industry, and I think last year was really important. People had to learn how to empathize with other people and understand that everybody's going through something. I think everyone was under some sort of stress. If it's either like being afraid if you're gonna get COVID, if someone from your family is gonna get COVID, parents they had to work and take care of their children at the same time. So everybody was going through something, and I think it was an exercise for us to understand that we're in a meeting, in a Zoom, and the person behind the screen is going through something. So let's be nice to that person. Let's be nice to each other. So I think that's the word that I really hope we take it after this year. I think it's very important. And I think the most annoying words, I would say Zoom calls. I cannot wait for us to say no more Zoom calls. Let's do a meeting in person. I think that that's the most scary word. Let's do a Zoom call to discuss this or that. So
that's funny. Empathy is a great word. Do you think we're going to get rid of Zooms? Do you think it's going to go away?
I don't. I think like a few Zooms, it's fine. But back to back Zooms, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I miss the interaction. I think it's important to have meetings in person. So I don't think Zooms will go away, but I really do hope that we do less Zoom meetings.
In-person hugs. We all need those.
Yeah.
What about you, Diego?
A while ago, like in the middle, in the thick of COVID and lockdown, I was in the middle of this meeting and I was going, of course, like 1,000 per minute. And everybody was like, how do we get this out? It's a fire drill. And afterwards, someone called me and we continued talking about the meeting, but they asked me, how are you? Like almost like a, by the way, how are you? And I was like it stopped me in my tracks. And I'm like, what do you mean? You know, but then once I like answered the question and in a very genuine way, because the person was being very genuine, they were very, you know, just concerned, and it changed my, you know, my way of looking at three very simple words and asking it from time to time, right? We're so bogged down and so siloed and moving so quickly, and these Zooms don't help. They make it completely, you know, inhuman. It's just like, get on the Zoom, here's what I need, everyone do this. Okay, get off the Zoom, get on the next Zoom, here's what I need. To stop for a second, or to, you know, to ping someone afterwards and ask them, how are you doing? Like, that really changes somebody's entire, you know, kind of perspective on a job, or, you know, in relation to like, why is this person reacting this way in this meeting or whatnot? Because you do, again, go back to a more empathetic view of what they're going through. So I thought that one really, really, you know, it's very simple, but big impact on me.
I would be lying if I didn't tell you three that I'm really honored to have you guys here, because we read a lot about you guys. We see you in such high places, and to really be able to like talk to you as a human being and hear what your thoughts are and know that you're just like us, it's really kind of thrilling, to be honest. So for you to, you know, be able to say that really changed your life, I'm telling you, it's going to inspire a lot of people to say, how are you doing? And really take the time to really understand who people are talking to. So I love that. What about the most annoying?
Oh gosh, I really hate the word or term ASAP. When you ask somebody, okay, and when is this due? Like, when do I need to get this to you? ASAP, just ASAP. It's like, I can't do anything with that. I can't, you know, strategically move resources around to make sure that we pull these people off that day. Just lie to me. Give me a date. Throw something out in the air. You know what I mean? Just honestly lie to me. But ASAP, we need to retire that. ASAP.
I love it. That's great.
I've stopped doing it as well. Like when I send like interview questions to someone and they ask the deadline, even if I don't have one, I just give them one. Just
give them one.
Well, you know, I found this quote on Renata's. I don't know. I don't know what this place is. It's like ASEC, IASEC. It's an internship that you had.
Yeah, it's a voluntary internship.
There was a great quote there that said, "Never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow." And I thought, oh my God, like they are speaking to me, you know, and that's what we're talking about. That was Plato, by the way. But what about you, Bianca?
I was just trying to, you know, pivot a little, because like I feel like the words I was thinking are very similar to what, you know, these guys were talking about. And, you know, I think in sort of like a similar way, the word kind of like flexible or resilience, you know, came to me because of the past year, and how like that was really what we needed to do the whole time. It's like be flexible, or just kind of change the approach to everything, you know, and adapting to like the news, which were constantly changing. Now you need to wear a mask. Oh no, masks are not a thing. No, masks are like the whole time you're just kind of like you're leaving a moment that was new to everyone, and so you're just needing to, you know, roll with the punches and like make the most of it. And I feel like being resilient to adapt to those changes, I'm cheating because I'm picking a few words, was something that we all had to do. And so that kind of comes to mind.
Did you use that philosophy in your own home?
I'm like on the, you know, sometimes like annoyingly positive with that kind of stuff. I have a 2-year-old, and when I gave birth, I spent 2 months in the hospital before giving birth in bed rest. And those were like 2 months inside of a room. It was like a really small room, and like I could like leave the bed for 10 minutes every day. And so like when they, you know, when it was like, oh, you get to spend like time in my whole apartment and I could move around perfectly, like I was like, no problem. I just spent like 2 months in the bed. Like I can do this. So I don't know. I've always kind of compare and think it could be worse, and I try to make the most out of it. And I'm kind of annoyingly sometimes positive in that sense. But yeah, it was tricky, obviously. I just kind of tried to always kind of find a solution, you know, or maybe for my sake, there was always like something that we applied at home. Yes.
It really can mean so many things. And I think, again, that's a great word for us all just to remember, because being flexible with how people feel, you don't know how people feel until they ask you, how are you? You know what I mean? What is the most annoying word? or words?
Something I've been hearing a lot the past like 6 months. My kid just kind of like realized that he can just keep saying like mamãe in, which is mom in Portuguese, but like the whole time he'll just be like mamãe, 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 and I'll be like Theo's like I'm here, and then he like found it's like a cool game, so he'll say mamãe and then I'll say his name, so he'll be like mamãe and I'll be like Theo, mamãe, and we do that like every day for the past 6 months. He'll just yell my name if I'm not doing like anything, that or yell mamãe if I'm not doing anything. So that's been fun. Not to say annoying.
Life happens, and that's real. So I love that. Well, thank you for your answers. Let's go on to number 2. What social platforms are you on, or do you like best in your personal life, and what do you use them for? And I'm going to start with Diego. Go ahead.
Oh man, I've this is so nerdy, but I have been on LinkedIn an embarrassing amount of time. My boyfriend is like next to me on Instagram and looking at mood board and like creative things, and I'm on LinkedIn. But I've honestly found, especially during lockdown, that it was the best platform to not only see what other people are doing in our industry and celebrate it, but to really connect one-on-one with them and just be like, how on earth did you get that shot? How were you able to do that? To other producers, it's just turned into this flurry of like behind the scenes social conversations. And, I find myself going, moving less and less towards Facebook and Instagram to fill in my time and more on LinkedIn.
I think like a year ago, I only really saw LinkedIn for that kind of weird, murky kind of corporate business world that it was probably previously most known for. Like, I don't know if there's a Twitter page called State of LinkedIn, which is worth a follow if you want to laugh at LinkedIn. But like mostly it is like just people kind of celebrating their friends and colleagues' cool stuff, right? That's what it is. It's like I made a cool thing or I did a cool interview, and then people reading what you said. I think it's just a pretty positive, nice place to be these days, really.
What about you, Bianca?
Mine was LinkedIn too, because we've also launched an agency, and that is kind of like part of our job, or my job and my partners and people at Mischief, is to create the agency voice, create like the share our work and do our own PR, because that's kind of like how people are going to see what we're doing. That's how we get new clients interested in talking. So we've focused, and I've personally focused on LinkedIn too in that sense, and just talking about work, promoting work, seeing what other people are doing, and yeah.
What about you, Renata?
I use a lot in Instagram, especially in the last year, to learn things that I like. So last year I started baking all sorts of things, and gardening. I started growing my herb gardening, and I think Instagram is where I was looking for tips and things like that. And LinkedIn I also use a lot. Those were the 2 ones that I think I use the most for the same reasons. The agency was spending. I needed to see who was out there, what was the work out there, what people were doing. So I think those were the 2 main social medias I used.
Yeah, I think everybody's probably in the same boat with that one. Well, thank you. Let's go to number 3. So outside of work, do you take stock in any award shows as a benchmark for creative quality? And if so, which ones makes the biggest impression on you and why? And I think we'll start with Bianca.
For me, those award shows it's kind of like a little bit like the social media. It's like they're important for me to like always follow and watch, because there are a lot of cultural moments that these events spark that we need to be like to know. I follow them more because of that than because I'm gonna like go check out and like what has been winning. So I take that as like, all right, those are the good films, those are the good songs. Or for me it's more about, there's so many more films and music and shows and everything that are great that don't get recognized for many reasons. So I don't take that as just like my reference in terms of like my taste or what I like or what deserves. It's just more like something that I follow. I don't necessarily take my personal benchmark out of like the stuff that wins.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you for that. What about you, Renata?
I do so for movies, even though it's not like just because a movie won an Oscar that I know I'm going to love it. But I always do a marathon. Like I marathon the Oscar movies before Oscar. I'm always looking to see who won, Cannes, Berlin, the Venice Festival. I think it's also important for me as a producer to know who's out there. I tend to look and who's winning, who's in those festivals, and watch them. So I do use, but for movies only. I don't do it for music or anything else.
What about you, Diego?
Oh, I get crazy around award season. I go nuts. Ever since I was
How many tuxedos do you have?
Oh, well, I don't fit in any of them. I'll tell you that right now. Not a single one. But ever since I was a kid, my parents, they were big cinephiles. I come from a big movie family, and they would make us watch movies and constantly ask us, "What did you think about the music? Why did you like that?" And started like introducing things that at an early age, like cinematography and stuff like that. So to this day, I'm with you, Renata. Like I will start with all of the individual city festivals and make its way up to when the award seasons kick off with the Critics' Choice and then the Globes and the SAG and the everything leading up to the Oscars. And as a family, when we were young, like all of that was like research, and you watched the movies and whatnot, and then it all came down to Oscar season, and you'd print out your ballot. Everybody would pick their choices and have to submit it by a deadline. And every year we would compete to see like who in the family won that year. And we had like, it's pretty hardcore. And it would get like, the WhatsApp chat, chats would be pretty insane, very competitive family. But to this day, it's a great way for me to just, keep an eye on who, who's out there that's like emerging talent, who is unsigned and not, represented by a commercial representation that we could potentially leverage internally for, our Steelhead productions, and all kinds of other just really amazing talent that I hadn't seen out there. So
let's go to the next question. What was the most historic thing that you witnessed in person or took part in? Bianca, what about you?
No, I was just going to say, I'm just wondering how we're not going to all answer COVID. It's just like, I never thought we were like, it literally feels like out of a movie. And it felt like we got used to it now, but like looking around you and seeing every single person with a mask.
I'm watching C at the moment on Apple TV, which is all based around a virus that basically wiped out all of humanity apart from like 2 million people who are now all blind. But yeah, it kind of like, I just started it a couple of days ago, and I guess it hit a little harder than it would have done.
Just like to sort of like finish that thought with COVID is like sort of a no-brainer. And I started thinking about like other moments that are kind of like all of the negative things kind of started coming to me, and maybe that's where my optimistic side like completely went away, because I was like, well, people that witnessed 9/11 would be pretty, but like I wasn't here, and when it happened, then Trump becoming president, I just kind of like started thinking of like all this kind of there's been so many, I guess, like in the past couple of years, like Black Lives Matter is another one that I feel like, for me personally, I just remember hearing like, noise outside my apartment, and I went to the balcony and I was just seeing, and it was like literally there, like all this, tension between the police and people like throwing stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm actually watching right here what's happening in the news, and this like huge, movement that everybody's talking about. And it just feels like there were a lot of different things happening lately that we can call, historic moments that we were close to. But I guess COVID is just the biggest one that's that's one that it's hard to get away from.
It's just, we're in a historic time period right now that is going to be really interesting for your children to like kind of get some kind of, I'd love to hear what their conversation is going to be about it, basically. But what about you, Renata?
When I was thinking about which historic moment I lived, I thought exactly the same ones. The first one is COVID. I mean, COVID last year, right after we started working from home, I had to fly to Brazil. And I remember going to the Miami International, which is a super busy airport. There was no one. All terminals, they were shut down. I was in a huge plane, and it was me and 10 people.
Wow.
And I was super scared. I had no idea like what could happen at the time. We didn't know. I remember seeing all that and going through all that. It was crazy, just crazy to see how it affected the world, how everything stopped. So definitely the COVID pandemic, I think that's the biggest one.
Wow. Diego.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I mean, what stood out to me, I think, and the fact that I was able to vote as well, is just the first woman vice president. I mean, and
Yeah.
what a vice president she's been. So that to me is definitely airs more on the positive side, and very excited to see some change, some real change enacted there.
Let's go to the fifth question. So, as a leader or outside of work, how do you inspire a team or the people around you as more big changes are happening in the world? And it could be anything. It could be work focused or your personal life. But let's go with you, Diego.
Yeah, I think going back to the Black Lives Matter movement and the, what we saw this past year, I think that our industry, I have never seen, it really activate itself to look at, diversity and inclusion beyond just like quotas and, a numbers game, and to really, really do some hard, heavy work to enact real change and to do their best at changing some of these systemic issues that we as an industry have. And it's been amazing to like grab a hold of that and to force accountability internally, with our creatives, with our producers, to push for giving people opportunity and to breaking out of the same, that system of like looking at the same 10 white straight men, for every single, genre. That has been really incredible. And then seeing, from again, an accountability and numbers side, like what those changes have been and how we are pushing this as an agency, and how our groups internally, creatives and account people have really grabbed onto it, and clients too. They want this change. I think everybody was like really genuinely ready for it. And now we have this moment where we can really start pushing, and it's enough talking and more walking. So I love that, and being able to, really, really embolden our producers to push for that and educate more and to value that more has been incredibly rewarding.
What about you, Bianca?
I relate to a lot of the things Diego said. I think just to not repeat and try to build on some stuff. But I mean, specifically to our team at Mischief, we're all new. We're all coming together, and we're trying to really build the agency in a way that keeps all those things in mind, where everybody can see, can feel represented, and can see themselves can relate to the people at the top. And I think we're trying to be very open to dialogue with the team and just hear what people have to say, and just build the agency around the people and the way they prefer working, the hearing really their concerns, and not just feeling like more of the big corporation kind of put your thoughts in a box, and someone reads, someone will do something. There's a big plan ahead that will be that you don't really see how it's going to affect you. So building the ship or I guess the plane where we were flying, I try to use these American expressions, and I'm like, why? I don't know. We have the power to change whatever is wrong. We're not in a big machine that needs to have a lot of different layers and to change something. So we're just kind of making changes as we go to make sure that people feel inspired around us, and people are happy and feel represented.
I love that. I mean, look, that is really what it's about: communication and listening, and in what all of you guys are saying. And it's so inspiring that you guys have done that as leaders, have really thought about what COVID has meant to you and how it's really kind of affected you, and how you can take that and put it to action with your teams and with your agencies. But thank you for that, Bianca. That's it's amazing. And what about you, Renata?
I would also say that to inspire people, the best way is to create a safe environment where we can exchange feelings, words. You can say things that you don't like, say that things that you see that you think is wrong, that you think we could be doing differently. And not just creating this environment, but also making sure that people are heard and you're doing something about it. And one thing also, last year, I really encouraged everyone to set boundaries. I think that was really important. So making sure that we take our time, learning how to say no. And I always made sure that my team knew that they could say no to, doesn't matter who he was. And yeah, I think the agency really tried to create a safe environment so everybody could know that they had a voice. I think those were the main things.
I'm a mom and I'm like, well, 6 p.m. it's my time to give my kid, a bath, food. And like when you are doing that and you're like, in the like kind of like setting up that example, you're already kind of giving people like, the example to do the same. Because if you're doing it, if you're taking time, if you're not the one that's always on and just telling people to like, not always be on, then it doesn't work. But we're like, yeah, no, now it's kids time for me, we'll chat after. And if like you should do the same. So
I agree. I almost include like a disclaimer in my emails where it's just like, I'm shooting these things off at night because I can, you know what I mean? Because I'm in bed and I have an idea or, something occurred to me that I forgot or whatnot, but do not feel like you need to respond to this until you have the time. Or, if I wake up super early and shoot off an email, it's just like, there is no sense of urgency here. I'm just up early this morning, I'm doing a Peloton.
I love that you brought that up, because I'm the same way. Like, I literally, it's a disclaimer. It's like, at your own time, prioritize. You're smart. I hired you for that reason. I think that's just so smart. And I hope we all just continue to do that instead of going back to the rat race that we kind of have built, around us prior to the pandemic.
Yeah. And Oliver, to encourage people as we kind of ease back into normalcy, you know what I mean, and start going back to the office, to encourage people to say, look, there's a lot of things, that COVID and working from home and doing the remote thing, there's a lot of positives from that too. And I want to really understand from you guys what the most optimal, scenario looks like, where we take the best from the remote portion. And as we transition into this going back to normalcy, what do you want to not lose, as we go back into the office? Because I think a lot of people are also nervous now that they've hit their stride of working from home for so long. Like, does this mean I have to be in, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., like, being, almost graded in terms of like how long I'm in the office. So I think that'll be very important to find that balance between the two as we go back into the office.
Given all of the things that and all of your experiences in life and everything that you've done to this point, what would you tell your 10-year-old self about your life? Or what advice would you give to your 10-year-old self? So I'm going to start with Renata.
I would say enjoy your time with your loved ones. That's all that matters.
I love that. That's great. What about you, Diego?
Yes, slow down, like really digest, like enjoy, really, take a moment to celebrate your accomplishments and not just, jump to the next thing or think about, okay, good, but how can I improve it and keep going? Like, slow down and really, and I think that goes back to what Renata just said too, like spend time with the people you love, do what you love.
I love that. What about you, Bianca?
Yeah. I can relate to that too. I think maybe I'll say then, just live more at the moment. I guess that's something that I still haven't really learned. So then I don't know if I had told you that to myself back then, that like I would be able to, but I just feel like it's very hard to just be present 100% and be living the moment. And I'm always like looking back to the past or looking to the future. And, if I could change something, it was always just like, enjoy the moment. It's okay. Just right now here. And
I love that. I love all three of those things because it's just important, stay in the moment, love the one you're with, really be just, so present and smell the roses and take the time. I just want to thank you guys so much. This has been really kind of inspiring and exciting. I hope you enjoyed the time with us. We certainly did with you guys. This has been a really great, insightful, time with you guys. So I don't know if you have anything, last words, if anybody wants to say anything.
Just want to say thanks for having us. It's very, I'm inspired by everything that was said in this call too. So it was great to be here.
It's great. Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
Thanks to us as well. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you guys. It was great.
Yeah, you guys are terrific. Really, I wish you all the best. And thank you. Have a great day. And again, we really loved having you guys on 5 and 30, Anything But Advertising. Have a good one. See you around the block.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.